Blessed not to look like what you've been through, a living testimony of gratitude, faith, and radical softness. Welcome back to the Soft Girl Era podcast, hosted by LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. This is the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. Today, I had the profound honor of sitting down with Garvase McCullough, a woman whose life is a living, breathing testimony that screams there is so much to be grateful for, and all is not lost. Garvas is a recovering addict, a spinal cord injury survivor, a substance abuse counselor, a gang prevention and intervention specialist, a mother of four, a devoted wife, sister, auntie, daughter, and most importantly, a daughter of the Most High. Her story is not just one of survival, it's one of divine favor, unshakable gratitude, and a refusal to let trauma define her identity. Garvase has been blessed not to look like what she's been through, and her testimony is changing lives, one conversation, one intervention, one moment of grace at a time. She's making the world a better place by showing us that pain doesn't have to be permanent and that purpose can be pulled from the deepest pits of despair. Let me tell you something. When you meet someone like Garvase McCullough, you don't just hear a story, you feel a shift. You witness what it looks like when God takes the broken pieces of a life and turns them into a masterpiece of purpose. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. So here's the thing about gratitude. We talk about it all the time, right? We say, be grateful, count your blessings, look on the bright side. But what happens when the bright side feels like it's been swallowed whole by the darkest valley you've ever walked through? What happens when you're lying in a hospital bed, paralyzed, wondering if you'll ever walk again? What happens when addiction has stolen years from you, relationships from you, your sense of self from you? What happens when survival mode is all you've known and softness feels like a foreign language you never learned to speak? That's where Garvasa's testimony begins. In the wreckage, in the accident that could have, should have taken her life. But God had other plans. And if you've ever felt like you were supposed to be dead, supposed to be broken beyond repair, supposed to be written off by everyone who ever knew you, then you already know what I'm talking about. During our conversation, Garvas shared the moment that changed everything: the accident, the spinal cord injury, the instant when her entire world flipped upside down and she had to reckon with a new reality. But here's what struck me most: it wasn't just the survival that defined her story, it was the gratitude she chose to carry in the aftermath. Even when her body was broken, even when the road to recovery felt impossible, even when the weight of being a mother, a wife, a woman with responsibilities pressed down on her, she found something to thank God for. And that, my friends, is not weakness. That is radical softness. That is strength redefined. That is what happens when you stop trying to be the superwoman and start being the woman God created you to be, scars and all. Let me be clear. Garvase McCullough is not telling you to slap a smile on your pain and call it healed. She's not handing out toxic positivity like candy at a parade. What she's offering is something far more powerful. She's showing us that gratitude is not about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about acknowledging the pain, sitting with it, letting it breathe, and still choosing to see the blessings that are woven into the fabric of your survival. Because here's the truth: you don't survive a spinal cord injury, addiction, gang violence, trauma, and come out on the other side looking untouched unless God's favor is all over you. Oh, and Garvase, she's living proof. She's walking, talking, breathing proof that divine intervention is real and that gratitude is the bridge between your brokenness and your breakthrough. Now, let me take you deeper because Garvasa's story isn't happening in a vacuum. There are other Black women, other survivors, other warriors who have walked similar paths and turned their pain into purpose. And I want to share three of them with you because their stories echo Garvase's testimony in ways that will make you believe in miracles all over again. First, there's Nikki King, a Black woman from Memphis, Tennessee, who became a quadriplegic after a car accident in 2004 at just 19 years old. She was ejected from the car in a high speed crash, paralyzed from the chest down, and flatlined twice. Twice, but God revived her. And Nikki didn't just survive, she thrived. She built a career as a motivational speaker, launched her own business called NK Inspirations, spoke at TEDx events, authored books, and get this, walked with assistance for the first time in years at her own wedding. She turned her survival into a testimony of faith, gratitude, and entrepreneurship. She refused to look like what she'd been through. Sound familiar? That's because Nikki's story mirrors Garvase in every way that matters. Both women faced life altering accidents. Both women were told their lives would never be the same. Both women chose gratitude over bitterness, faith over fear, and purpose over pity. And both women are now empowering Black communities nationwide, showing us that softness, healing, and resilience can coexist. They're showing us that you can be tender and tough at the same time. You can cry and still conquer. You can rest and still rise. Then there's Brittany Johnson, a Black woman from St. Louis who started using crack cocaine at 13 years old. 13? Let that sink in. A child. She battled addiction, homelessness, repeated relapses, and the stigma that comes with being a Black woman trying to rebuild her life in corporate America. But Brittany didn't let her past define her future. She sought faith based recovery, leaned into counseling and mentorship, and channeled her pain into advocacy. Today, she's a vice president at Salesforce, a Fortune 500 company, and the author of a book called Undefeated: Triumph Over Adversity. She went from sleeping in laundromats to leading diversity initiatives in Silicon Valley. She went from rock bottom to the boardroom. And she did it with gratitude, faith, and an unshakable belief that God's favor could redeem the irredeemable. Brittany's journey parallels Garvase's recovery from addiction. Both women know what it's like to hit rock bottom. Both women know what it's like to be written off, judged, dismissed, told they'd never amount to anything. And both women chose to rise anyway. They chose to be substance abuse counselors, advocates, and living testimonies that all is not lost. They chose to turn their mess into their message and their pain into their platform. And finally, there's Latika Simone, a Black woman from Los Angeles who was deep in Crips gang activity as a teenager. She faced gang violence, prison time, and the struggle of single motherhood. But after a near fatal shooting and a spiritual awakening, Latika turned her life around. She became a gang intervention specialist, founded initiatives with the Watts Gang Task Force, counseled hundreds of at risk youth, and raised her children successfully, breaking generational curses in the process. She transformed urban Black communities by modeling gratitude fueled reinvention for ex gang members. Latika's evolution from gang member to guardian mirrors Garvase's work as a gang prevention and intervention specialist. Both women know what it's like to be in the thick of violence, trauma, and survival mode. Both women chose to use their pain as a platform to save lives. Both women are mothers who refuse to let their past dictate their children's future. And both women are living proof that God's favor can turn a testimony of tragedy into a legacy of transformation. So here's what I want you to hear. Garvase McCullough, Nikki King, Brittany Johnson, and Latika Simon are not anomalies. They are not exceptions to the rule. They are examples of what happens when Black women choose gratitude, faith, and softness over survival mode. They are examples of what happens when we stop trying to look strong all the time and start embracing the healing, wholeness, and rest we deserve. They are examples of what happens when we drop the cape, set the boundaries, and say no to anything that doesn't serve our peace. Because here's the thing: high achieving Black women, especially those of us between 38 and 55, we've been taught to carry the world on our shoulders. We've been taught to be the superwoman, the strong Black woman, the one who never breaks, never cries, never asks for help. We've led teams, raised families, held down households, carried communities, and we're exhausted, we're tired, we're depleted, and we're ready for something different. But Garvase's testimony and the testimonies of women like her are giving us permission to put down the cape. They're showing us that softness is not weakness. It's a radical act of self love. They're teaching us that gratitude shifts perspective, even in the darkest valleys. They're reminding us that faith fuels testimony and that we are blessed not to look like what we've been through. So let me ask you this: what are the invisible blessings in your toughest trial? What are the things you've survived that you haven't thanked God for yet? Your survival, your family, your purpose, your ability to still show up even when it's hard, your ability to still breathe even when the weight of the world is crushing your chest. This week, I'm challenging you to do something. List 3 invisible blessings from your toughest trial. Write them down, say them out loud. Thank God for them. Because gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a practice, it's a choice, it's a discipline, and it's the key to unlocking your soft girl era. Garvase McCullough taught me that. She taught me that you can be a recovering addict and a substance abuse counselor. You can be a spinal cord injury survivor and a gang prevention specialist. You can be a mother of 4, a devoted wife, and a daughter of the Most High, all at the same time. You can embrace your full identity beyond the scars, and you can live like the testimony you are. She also taught me that gratitude doesn't erase the pain, it transforms it. It doesn't make the trauma disappear, it makes the trauma meaningful. It doesn't undo what happened, it redeems what happened and turns it into something that can heal someone else. And that's the power of a living testimony. It's not just about what you survived, it's about who you become because of what you survived. It's about how you use your pain to pull someone else out of theirs. It's about how you turn your brokenness into a bridge for someone who's still stuck in the valley. So here's my final word, and I want you to really hear this. Don't look like what you've been through. Live like the testimony you are. Lean into gratitude, faith, and purpose. Protect your peace as a practice. Set boundaries without apology. Rest without explanation. And remember, all is not lost. God's favor is all over you. You're not defined by your addiction. You are not defined by your injury. You're not defined by your trauma. You're defined by your resilience, your faith, your gratitude, and your refusal to let the enemy win. You are blessed. You are favored. You are whole. And you are worthy of every soft, joyful, restful moment you've been denying yourself. So take off the cape, put down the weight, stop trying to be strong for everyone else, and start being soft for yourself. Because that's where the real power is. That's where the real healing is. That's where the real transformation is. And if you need permission, here it is. I give you permission to rest. I give you permission to heal. I give you permission to be soft. I give you permission to say no. I give you permission to choose yourself. I give you permission to live like the testimony you are. Now go. Go and be grateful. Go and be soft. Go and be free. Go and be everything God created you to be without apology, without explanation, and without looking back. Because you, my dear, are blessed not to look like what you've been through. And that in itself is a miracle worth celebrating.